Hey everybody, this is a clip from the latest episode of the Randi Rhodes Show. If you want the full episode, you can watch live on Free Speech TV, Dish Channel 9415, DirecTV 348, Sling, Roku, and Apple TV.
Mary had a little man.
The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today. Change has come to America.
Believe it.
Knock, knock.
I think we have to go back to the point where we instill in these children, at least give them the opportunity to know that they're created in the image of God, therefore they have inherent value. And as the first president of the United States said, don't think that we can have morality without religion. We've driven religion from our public life, and we're shocked that we no longer have morality and we no longer value human life.
Tony, I'd like to bring in Pastor Cory Brooks from the New Beginnings Church now. Pastor, what is your response and thoughts on the shooting in Texas?
Well, I agree a lot with what Tony just said. The fact that morality is at a very low in America right now. We have to do everything we can to make sure that we turn America back toward God. It's unfortunate that in so many institutions, God has been forced out of the equation. And as a result, you see individuals throughout America who have emptiness. Whether you're dealing with a kid in Texas or a kid on the block in Chicago, a lot of these young people have emptiness inside. They're needing attention, affirmation, and acceptance. And until we get that settled, and no matter how many laws we do, no matter how restrictive we make it, Chicago has some of the most restrictive gun laws, but yet we still have a high surge of violence. That is because we're lacking in morality.
These are some very, very twisted, sick people. Very twisted. That's Tony Perkins from the Family Research Council. This is a man who preaches hate every single day. I mean, he hates gay people, despises anything that is, different from himself. You've got that other pastor, Cory Brooks, sitting there going, oh, it has nothing to do with guns. It has to do with lack of morality. We need to bring God back into the public square. You can look at the most religious places on earth, and you could look at the most irreligious places on earth. And if you look at the most irreligious places on earth, like Norway, Sweden, Denmark, Estonia, they don't have mass shootings. And then you look at some of the most religious places on earth, and they throw rocks at women until they die. But they love life. They value life. This is some real big swill. This is such a con game. This is such a bamboozling. This is all on behalf of the NRA. I swear to God, that's all you heard from Fox News. After the third mass shooting this month, it was so twisted.
Now 5 people are dead, 21 others injured, including 3 law enforcement officers after a traffic stop on a West Texas highway sparks a drive-by shooting rampage. Joining us now, Southern Baptist pastor and former police officer Tony Perkins, also the president of the Family Research Council. Tony, as always, a pleasure to have you. First, I want to get your thoughts on the shooting in Texas.
Well, the words have been used far too frequently and are beginning to use their meaning, but it's tragic. And at some point, we have to realize that we have as a nation, we have a problem. And the problem is not the absence of laws, it's an absence of morality. Really the result of a decades-long march through the institutions of America, driving religion and God from the public square.
Well, let's get into a little bit more on that. You have a new op-ed out sort of going into this topic on trying to end gun violence. What do we need to do as a country?
God.
Well, Tom, I'm willing, as a former police officer and an ardent supporter of the Second Amendment, I'm willing to sit down with the left who say, I don't want to hear any more about your prayers. Well, I agree. Praying alone is not enough. It's time to act. And it's not just about having a conversation about restricting those who should not have guns, criminals, but it's also a discussion of the absence of a moral core in our culture today.
What?
I mean, look, we've taught our kids that they are they come about by chance through primordial slime, and then we're surprised that they treat their fellow Americans like dirt. It's time we talk about the result of the left's systematic march through our institutions, driving religious expression from the public square.
very sick. It's very, very sick. This man makes a fortune being an evangelical preacher. This Family Research Council, they are totally involved in government, and yet they still have a 501c3. NRA too is a not-for-profit. This is sick. This is really twisted. This is for the benefit of a handful of big money guys who sit there and tell you that you're being gunned down in the street and it's your fault because we don't group pray. Now we need group prayer. You're the right. Thoughts and prayers aren't enough when people do it by themselves. You need, group prayer and group. It's very sick and sad. And I will tell you, this is a uniquely American problem. You can look at, again, some of the countries that, a religion is very, very unimportant to the people who reside in those countries, and they don't have mass shootings like we do. And you could look at some of the most religious countries in the world, which happen to be in the Middle East. And there's a lot of death and a lot of killing going on there. And a lot of persecution, especially of women. Oh, please. This whole conversation about morality and I'm so sick of the bullcrap. I'm so tired of it. We as Democrats or as not Republicans, I don't care what you are, if you're an independent, we have to solve our own freaking problem, because these people on the right who are protecting the corporate money are never going to let it go. They're going to blame you every single time somebody gets access to a weapon of war. They're going to blame you. Now, I will say some police chiefs have said in the face of their mass shootings, they have said, please, dear God, take these weapons of war off the streets. Our officers are outgunned. When they are responding. You remember the guy in Philly? Yeah. So we're outgunned. You got to get rid of these weapons of war. It's not right. It's not fair to the police officers. It's not fair. But no, these religious zealots who really don't have any religion at all, they are willing to lie. They are willing to blame you for your own death. They're willing to blame you for the loss of your own child, who all you did was send your kid to school that morning. It's your fault. You did something. And that thing that you did was you took God. What do you mean you took God? How do you know whatever goes on in everybody's house in the morning? I just don't even know what they know. Here are the stats on gun violence in this country, okay? We have exceptionally high rates of gun violence. We outpace other high-income countries. We have the weakest gun laws, too. The most guns of any country. 393 million guns. That is more than any comparable nation. Any nation. Whether they are religious nations or irreligious nations, it doesn't matter. We have more guns than whether you have a billion population in India, a billion population in China. We got 350 million people and 393 million guns. 36,383 Americans are killed with guns in this country every single year. Again, 22,000 suicides, 12,000, almost 13,000 homicides, gun homicides. And they don't want to do anything about it? They don't want to do anything about it. You know where homicides are you know what the highest gun death rate state is? Bet you don't know. Yeah, it's Alaska. Alaska has the highest gun death rate among the 50 states because they have the weakest gun laws. 25 people are killed with guns for every 100,000 residents in Alaska. On average, fewer people die from gun violence in states with strong gun laws. More people die in states with weak gun laws. Now, everybody's going to point to Chicago. You know, the violence in Chicago happens in a tiny little part of Chicago, an underserved, extremely segregated, entrenched in poverty section of the Windy City. That's where you see gun violence. Now, we used to see it in Oakland, California. But see, Oakland decided they were going to set out to fight the gun violence problem. And guess what? They were successful. Now, Chicago, all you got to do is drive a half an hour, and guess where you are? You're in Illinois. Some of the weakest gun laws in this nation. black market for guns, private sales, no background check.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
Radio Beacon to